What legal footing does the Trump administration have to try to offer this many 2 million employees a buyout?
It's not really clear, Katie. And I think one of the things that's even less clear now is when that offer, to the extent that it's legal, even expires. Because in the wake of this judge's ruling, you have the White House press secretary now going out and saying that they are grateful to this judge in Boston for extending the buyout offer. You'll recall that we have public reporting, including from our own NBC News, saying that they weren't going to extend the buyout offer, that the deadline was the deadline. But now, faced with this ruling from a federal judge, essentially staying any implementation of the buyout plan, they are now embracing that and claiming that this gives more people an opportunity to take a buyout offer, the legality of which is in question to begin with.
I'm curious about what this is going to mean. I mean, the Republicans have been arguing the federal government is bloated for years now, for decades. And there are probably a lot of people out there, Elaine, who say, yes, the federal government has too many employees, the bureaucracy is too big, we could probably cut it down. But the way in which they're doing this, by offering a buyout, are you going to get the people you don't necessarily need to take the buyout? I mean, they're implying that everybody is just lazy, they don't want to go to work. And they're implying that all those folks are just going to want to take the buyout so they can stay at home and watch Netflix. Is that who's going to take that money?
Listen, nobody knows, okay? Back in the Clinton administration, we passed a buyout bill in 1994, and it said that the government could offer up to $25,000 to have people leave office. Now, first of all, there's another legal question other than the one just mentioned, which is, if you run through the $25,000 in the first couple months of your buyout before September 30th, are you going to get all your money? Or is the government going to say, oh, no, sorry, $25,000 is the limit? So that's one problem. The second problem is this is being done in a blunderbuss way, right? It's just being done sort of in a silly way because you don't know who's going to take it. What if 10%, 15% of the 14,000 air traffic controllers in the country took the buyout? Uh-oh. We're in trouble. We don't have people to land planes. We don't have people to take off planes. Suddenly, you don't have landing slots at airports. Travel slows down, and everybody's mad at you. So doing this in this way has a lot of unintended consequences and a lot of blowback.
I want to just focus on that. I mean, you're talking about air traffic controllers. That would be crucial. Tom, what other agencies would you be looking at? What other positions would you be looking at that help make the government function and function well?
This is part of the problem. I think most people don't understand exactly how the government functions, and that even a person who's a GS-9 or a GS-10 who works in administration helps to keep the government running every day. Support staff, everybody from scientists to the people that make sure that the internal mail gets delivered. These are large organizations, and there's this goofy notion that somehow, again, as you said, people are just sitting around, watching Netflix and plodding around their homes. It's such an inane approach to reducing the federal workforce, which can be reduced. Let me just say, I am a former federal worker. I retired 2 years ago, so I did my part. You're welcome, America. But that's not the way to do it. And the other unintended blowback here is that you might get people who are going to retire anyway, who are just taking this now as making their retirement that much more expensive to the government. If the government can actually do any of this or pull it off. I mean, then you're going to have situations and agencies where people have kind of retired in place and you can't replace them because you don't have hiring authority. Because, of course, that's the point of this, is to just empty out offices. But that takes a lot of power away from the agencies to talk about which people they can live without. This could affect every agency from stuff that deals with nuclear weapons all the way down to, whether your checks get delivered every month from the government.
They've exempted defense. They say they're exempting folks who work on national security. I just looked up buyouts for air traffic controllers because I wasn't sure if they were exempt, Elaine, and I got a note saying that they were initially offered buyouts, but then that was rescinded after the deadly plane crash. But just to keep going on that point, Tom, on who exactly is going to take this, I want to talk about the people that aren't obviously workers in the national security apparatus. I mean, if you're not one of the obvious, I sit here and I monitor these direct phone lines, and I'm the one who has the monitor that says, like, there could be a dirty bomb coming from this place or that place, whatever. If you're not one of those direct employees, how much of the apparatus is there to support those specific jobs? And are we really putting our national security at risk by offering willy-nilly buyouts to 2 million federal employees?
Well, there are people who work in national security. I worked for the Defense Department. I was a professor for the Navy. I could retire and I wouldn't be missed. But you don't want to keep pulling sticks out of this giant Jenga pile to start trying to figure out where the one place is where things start to come unraveled and the whole thing falls down. So, you can talk about exempting people at certain agencies or in certain positions, but I don't think that that's going to be very helpful. Again, I think that, the people at the top who would be told, look, you can't retire or you can't take this deal, you have a crucial job. They rely on support staff. They rely on dozens, thousands, hundreds and thousands of people who do other jobs. And I think that's part of the problem is that, just saying everybody can retire at will is, I think, can have unexpected consequences, even if you carve out those senior positions above them. But they want to reduce the federal workforce. This is one way to do it, I guess.
Lisa, talk about what Tom mentioned on the buyouts and the freeze in hiring.
Well, the intersection of these two things is what's so potentially dangerous, Katie, because there's an executive order that President Trump issued in his first week of office that freezes all federal hiring across a panoply of programs. It was so vast that even interns at the Department of Justice had their offers to become summer interns next summer rescinded. Given that, and given how indiscriminate the federal buyout program is, given that we don't know where people are going to come from, that in combination with the hiring freeze makes it impossible for us to project exactly what the results are going to be. But if it does have an unprojected or even unwanted impact on a particular function of the government, that hiring freeze is a huge impediment to fixing any unexpected consequences.
It's so clunky. It's not done with any precision, Elaine. And part of it is, it's kind of like if you're going to do a takeover of a tech company, just fire as many people as, like Elon Musk did with Twitter. Just fire everybody, see what stops working, and then I can rebuild that thing and make it work again. I'll know how many people I need and whether there was too many there in the first place. The federal government isn't like a tech company. It's much more complicated, much more convoluted. There are so many more things that are at risk. It's not just does a like button on Twitter function or are my direct messages protected, which, you could be concerned about. But, I mean, this is like, are you going to get your Social Security check? Are you going to be able to go to the DMV and get your license? Is your passport going to get renewed? Are the airport workers going to be there in customs and immigration? I mean, there's all sorts of things that go into the federal government that you don't, I think what you think of off the top of your head is it's a bunch of bureaucrats, paper pushers who walk into an office every day and just, are checking boxes. And there's probably some of those folks that are probably not necessary to the federal government, but there's so much more going on there. If you were going to do this surgically and effectively, how would you go about it?
Well, I'd copy the way we did it in 1993 through 2000 in the Clinton administration. We had teams that looked at every single agency. We looked at what was going well, what was going badly. We offered buyouts to people who we didn't think were necessary anymore, who were in middle management jobs that really the internet and computerization had made obsolete. We took a targeted approach, agency by agency, function by function, so that you didn't have people who are 67 and trying to apply for Social Security. You didn't have them waiting on the telephone for 5 hours before somebody could talk to them. So again, I would do an agency by agency approach, and you look at your goals before you offer the buyouts and before you go into any RIFs or downsizing.